Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are. I'm Emily Gilpin. I am the Managing Director of National Observer's First Nations Forward series. We are very grateful to be speaking with Kanahus Manuel today. Kanahus, can you introduce yourself, please?
Waitip, Kanahus Request. Hello, everybody. Greetings. My name is Kanahus Manuel. I'm from the Secwepemc Tanaka Nations in so-called British Columbia, Canada, right now, residing in a tiny house warriors village, stopping the Trans Mountain construction here in our territory. Here in Blue River is the site where we're at right now. And we're actually blockading a 1,000-man man camp, Trans Mountain man camp that wants to just build just right across the road from us. There's a province-wide injunction Trans Mountain has received by the courts, by the Crown. So it limits us in our actions, but we're still out here and we're continuing to block this construction from happening.
Kanahus, thank you. Thank you for introducing yourself and letting us know where you're at. I mean, you've been protesting this pipeline for a long time, but more than protesting, you've been defending your tribal laws, defending your lands, defending the lives of many different life givers, especially who are threatened by these man camps. Can you give us an update on how you are doing right now and this week? How are you doing?
Well, this week has been, I guess I've been really looking at everything that's happening around the world, what's happening around Minneapolis right now, and other parts in the US where our brothers and sisters are actually out in the streets resisting. Last night I saw the police precinct, being burned to the ground. A lot of people are putting out live feeds, so we're seeing things live as it's happening. Mm-hmm. And, I just want to acknowledge the people out there that are taking action, that this is a big system that has really plagued our communities and committing genocide and all this warfare on our people since beginning, both the Blacks, the Africans, the descendants of slaves, and the Indigenous people. This is our continent, and we've been, marginalized, put into, like here in Canada, 0.2% Indian reserves. If you add up all the Indian reserves, and it'll equal 0.2%. So we have been living on a land base that has kept us impoverished. And, impoverishment is some of the biggest human rights weapons that the colonial governments have against us, both for the African and Indigenous communities. And so this week has really been refreshing to see the resistance and the rebellions taking place across the country. And we know that rebellions spark other rebellions. And so we see this, these fires being lit all over the US and hopefully in the hearts and the minds of people who looked at the police and felt like we had no way to fight back. We had no way to de-arrest our people. We had no way to stop the bullets or the strangulation. No, we have to empower ourselves. We are human rights defenders. We're not rioters. We are human rights defenders when we're out on the streets and out on the land. And so our rebellion comes in many different forms, and sometimes I'm here on the front lines, and especially during the winter time, and I feel like, am I really doing something, by here living and occupying our territory and not giving, a care about what the government is saying. The government continues to claim 100% control and jurisdiction over our lands. They continue to use the police force to, continue to execute their plan, which is the theft of our land. And the plan is the theft of our land because they want to make money off of the resources. Mm-hmm. And it's always been about the resources that they're making off of our territories, our Indigenous territories that have gotten these countries very wealthy. Mm-hmm. How could the US government just call in the National Guard like that and mobilize? That's a lot of money. Mm-hmm. Because they make that money off of Indigenous territories. Mm-hmm. Here in Canada, it's been 150 years. We say Canada is a baby country. Mm-hmm. When we're dealing with colonial governments. We've come here, they have come here to our lands, and it's been 150 years. I know we had big actions across Canada on that 150 years, Unsettled Canada, the actual title of my father's book, Unsettling Canada. And mm-hmm. That's what we're talking about. What does it look to unsettle Canada? Do these other nations and races and ethnicities that are coming here to our lands. They call Canada a multicultural country, like it's a melting pot. That's what we learned in these public school systems. They were encouraging this melting pot society here in Canada, a multiculturalism. But we need to respect this culture that allowed this land to be so beautiful. If we were a different type of race and culture, we might have got into industrialization and this continent would have been destroyed. This continent would have been destroyed, you know, prior to the white man coming here. But our culture and our economy allowed us to love our land, protect our land. When we took from our land, we gave back. When we took the berries, we pruned the berry bushes. We had traditional burns that made the soil and the plant life healthier and more bountiful. So these things, that just where I'm on the front line, so I might be distracted at some point. That's one of our camp dogs that are barking and usually warning us when the police are up front or out on the back part of the blockade. So we have someone checking it out. But sorry for being distracted there.
No worries.
It's a refreshing feeling to see the police station burning because the police, we have a long history of the police. And the Canadian government and the Hudson Bay Company, or the people that first came in, the first colonists that came in, they were able to do so because they had a policing. They were able to start to enact laws, these racist, white supremacist laws that they put in place here upon colonization, that they're all based off of white supremacy, all of these laws. So even enacting the police force is still based off that white supremacy because they're enacting white supremacist laws, that they have the right to claim Indigenous territories as their own because we were non-Christian, we were non-human. And so Canada is still based off those same white supremacist values and laws of today. And you talk to anyone that goes to law school, some of their first teachings they'll teach about is the legal fiction that Canada is based on. And that's that legal fiction. So it's all rest on top of those lies upon lies upon lies that they even had access to our land. So when I stood up against Carolyn Bennett, the Minister of Indian Affairs right there at the United Nations, and they were celebrating their 10-year, UNDRIP at the big headquarters in New York, and they asked Canada, Indigenous people to stand up. The United Nations only recognizes nation states. So of course, a white lady, Carolyn Bennett, was there wearing her traditional garb that she bought somewhere. And she stood up there and people are looking and they're like, oh, she's white. Yeah, she's white. That's Canada.
Yeah.
The Indian Affairs of Canada is Canada. It's not us. It's not natives. It's a white lady. And so, yeah, I confronted her. And it was so crazy. I'm just going to tell this story because it shows how Canada lies. So Carolyn Bennett is standing up there at the United Nations in this big, huge, it's like seats and seats, and they have countries and they have a little box on the side, like a jury box. And that's where the natives sit. They sit in a little side box. They're not even involved in the major thing. But miraculously, because my father was awesome, he got a spot there with his organization, Indigenous Network on Economies and Trade. So I was sitting there this is just, my father had passed away just a couple months before this. I'm sitting there with Russ Diabo and my brother Kanahus Manuel, and we're listening to Carolyn Bennett's speech. And I just wanted to, I object. I wanted to scream out in that big, huge auditorium, like, no, it's the headquarters Grand Hall or whatever they call it at the UN. And Russell just reminded me, oh, we're here under your father's organization. They could pull his organization maybe. So I said, okay, what am I going to do? I found a pen and I start scribbling on there, but trying to draw it so hard, like so people could see it when I pull this paper up to her and take a picture that says Canada lies, lies, lies. And so I did, and I was taking a picture and she was in the background busy doing her little diplomacy meet and greet with different countries. And I was standing there and she goes, hey, you got a sign there? And I said, yeah, I got a sign. You want to see it? And I hugged her and I gave her a big Manuel bear hug. And so people actually thought I was headlocking her because she was leaning over to try to look at that sign, but I was just gave her a big bear hug, and she looked shocked that I hugged her that tight. And then she looked at that sign and she goes, "We don't lie. We don't lie." And I'm like, "No, you lie. You say you have free prior informed consent to bring this pipeline through. You don't. You don't have the consent." And then boom, my camera died. My phone died. So I got that little clip that was able to go, viral across Canada to show the truth about Canada. And still, even to this day, I pull that out as every time people believe that Canada is going to do anything for us, that there's ever any type of reconciliation with Canada. The only type of reconciliation that will ever happen here in Canada is through us having our land back. That's the only thing, is that, and we as Indigenous people, like when my father says, when you go international, when you go speaking to the banks, when you go out there, you know it, you own your land, 180,000 square kilometers of territory, and you walk with that, that knowing that that's what our ancestors, that's our inheritance. A lot of people, like, they fight over their inheritance. Even amongst family members are fighting amongst inheritance. Imagine inheriting 180,000 square kilometers of land, but Canada claims 100% of it. And they didn't win it fair and square like they say they did. They didn't win it fair and square. It has never been fair at all, dealing with Canada. And so we're here on this front line here at Blue River, and the first day we touched down here and dropped these tiny houses on wheels and blocked them up and get ready to stay for the long haul, we had racist, white supremacist local residents coming through. We had the local restaurants denying us service, like actually blocking the door and saying, "We're not going to serve you." Like in 2018, that was.
What's the name of that restaurant?
It was the restaurant. I think it's called The Grill. It's connected with the Sandman here in Blue River, and then the truck stop, which is the Husky truck stop. I think they changed it to a Esso, but they have the truck stop restaurant. They refused us to serve us. Now that restaurant will serve natives, but that first summer they were stopping other natives that were just passing through from Alberta and stuff, and they were telling us they won't even serve us. When we'd see them in the parking lot coming out all distraught that they weren't serving them. So it's some place we have to go, and there's just a couple of places here in Blue River, but during COVID-19, that truck stop was nonstop with pipes coming through, these trucks that are parked overnight in the parking. You'll see all the heavy equipment. All of this is industry's equipment. And so it becomes a hot spot. Right now on this road is a dangerous spot for Indigenous women on Highway 5 and Highway 16. Like Highway 16, we already know that, but it goes all the way to Saskatchewan, Highway 16. It doesn't just stop at Prince George. It actually comes up here, and just maybe 30 minutes or so from Valemount, north of Valemount, where they have a Trans Mountain Man camp that they're constructing right now, bringing trailers in. It's just not that far. So Highway 16 isn't that far from us where we're at. And then it goes down into Highway 5, the Yellowhead Highway. And it's always been dangerous for Indigenous women to, hitchhike on highways or even bicycle on highways, like how other people can cycle across the country of Canada. No, it's not safe for Native women to do that. And so we see that, and we live with these realities every day of our life. Like, people don't know how Indigenous women and men, we all have a target on our backs, just as what's happening in the South, and you could say the Deep South. We call it the Deep North up here. That same equivalency of racism that happens. There's no RCMP station here in Blue River. When they come to monitor every day, twice a day, they got to drive an hour and a half from either direction, north or south, to make it here, and then back. And then they come back in the evening to do another patrol through. So that's the amount of resources they put in us. Meanwhile, there was a hate attack here that happened on April 19th. And that just was 6 months after the cops broke my wrist on October 19th. So we have a history with the police, but at the same time, I always have to remind myself and everybody that the police isn't just the ones pulling the strings. They're just the front line. They're a front line to a way bigger beast out there pulling the strings. And a lot of the time it's the money. It's the money that's involved. It's the money that's at risk. And they're willing to put it through no matter what. So the risk, this risk and uncertainty of just us being here, asserting Aboriginal title and rights to our land, Indigenous title to the land, that we have, a responsibility first, but we have rights to this land. We have inherent rights. We have what the Canadian government will call Aboriginal title and rights. Our Native people fought for that, to have some type of Aboriginal title and rights where it's, entrenched in the Canadian Constitution. We fought for that. Now, when all of these, they were supposed to define what does that mean, it's never been, we've never come together for those constitutional talks. And Russ Dibo talks about this. He'll say, after the Constitution Express and the Native rallied across Canada and we got that Section 35(1) into the Constitution, there was supposed to be constitutional talks that were able to define what does that mean. But those constitutional talks failed. I mean, remember Pierre Elliott Trudeau giving the finger to people on the train, the Constitution Express of Native people, like that. That's the history. Like Justin Trudeau, people think that he's a great man for Native people, or there's this reconciliation and amazing friendship. He has that tattoo on him that really should be cut right off. That's a disrespect to us as Native people. And how dare he have an Indigenous tattoo when our Indigenous young people are just crying in their spirits, crying for a traditional tattoo, So there's never been, and that's not the only reason why I don't like Justin Trudeau. I mean, there's big reasons why he's in place. He was groomed to be in that position right now. And the Alberta tar sands is, a big, is what he's holding on to in Canada. It's his big prize for Canada. What he holds on an international stage is all that oil and the gas that really they want to export out of Canada. It's not for us here. It's for export. And that those exports are not only impacting our Indigenous communities, but Ground Zero is like some of the first places that have been impacted. And we see it in the health impacts and what's all coming in the communities. Like the communities talking, the communities actually crying. Every time I hear women talk about the Alberta tar sands, they cry. I cry real tears with them because I feel exactly what they're telling us. They're warning us that of what's going to happen to us with this. They have skin lesions and their babies aren't able to bathe in water. They're bathing in 5-gallon jugs. They don't even get to turn on the tap water. A lot of Native communities across Canada, but specifically the Alberta tar sands, in the area around the Alberta tar sands, we know that how the drugs, the fentanyl, the alcoholism, the violence, not just domestic violence, but the violence against women, the violence against just in bar fights and brawls, and just the violence that comes with alcoholism and drug abuse and being isolated. So when people come out to these man camps, whether it's at the Alberta tar sands or on these pipeline man camps that they want to build, the majority of them are transient male workers. And when you get that amount of male workers together, like here, for instance, where they want to have 1,000, it's just the amount that you have to look after their waste. Even like I know, because we've had this camp here and we've fluctuated in our camp numbers, but we have to look after our own waste. But where we conserve, we reuse, we reduce, we recycle. We're not a bunch of slobs. We actually care about the land. So our composting toilets are done so it's like perfect back into the earth. Like that's what we need to talk about if we're talking about self-determination. And we can talk about all these issues about the Alberta tar sands, about the pipelines, about our impoverishment and us being displaced from our lands. But really what growing up in the movement and Native youth movement taught me is that we need to really focus on the solutions. We've spent all of these times talking about the problems and even our trauma, how we're impacted emotionally and psychologically, and everything from the trauma of colonization and the displacement of land and all of this. Like, we need to talk about the solutions. And so this is one of our solutions, right behind me is the Tiny House Warriors. And it was really inspired by a group of really strong women in our communities, warrior women that have been arrested, that have been on the front lines, who are now mothers and are saying, how are we going to resist against the Trans Mountain Pipeline? We know we need to be out on the land, occupying our territory. We need to be out there because that's the only way we're going to be able to continue to monitor our territories. And we need to be out here because if we're not using it, we're going to lose it. And that's one of the things my father ingrained in us, is that the only way that we really have a chance is if we always have people on the ground. We'll always have people on the ground. And he's always saying, like, Canada can't handle 10 hotspots, and that's inspired why we wanted to build 10 of these tiny houses, because we wanted to deploy 10, and we still will, and we still are planning on a lot of really cool moves here, because Trans Mountain's amping up their construction, and we're going to amp up our direct action as well, and our occupation of our lands. And this is the way that we can do it. And we want to be able to, like, there's young people from all across the country that are inspired. They want to come out onto the land. There's a big land back movement, a big, online, everybody's talking about land back. And so we want to be able to help assist young people, young warriors and land defenders, opportunities to be able to take land back. And we want to be able to, right now we have a fundraising push. We're gonna be doing another auction for action, art auction online. But we want to purchase teepees, from native businesses and canvas tents, and just be able to get out onto the land, so your youth could experience it on the land for a month, but not just on the land, actually fighting back against this pipeline. And it's really important that we organize with our young people, because as a young person, when I was organizing as Native Youth Movement, so much older people would say, oh, I don't think you should do that. I don't think you should get arrested. I don't think you should go to jail. You've already proved your point. You already got the media attention. You already got the, government squirming. You got this. You already accomplished all of these things. But when came time, and the elders were getting arrested and the young people were getting arrested, it was like, that's what I made, that choice. But then I end up getting arrested after all these different charges, even though some of my first arrests were, I chose to be arrested. Now we have Tiny House Warriors. We don't want to get arrested as mothers, because that's time away from our children. And what they're doing now is they're racking up all these small little mischief charges on us and trying to detain us. They're trying to, the last time they arrested me, they tried to detain me until my trial, which would have been in November. I would have spent all of COVID-19 from the fall to like almost a year in jail is what they're asking. So if they make up any other bogus charges, to politically motivated charges, they could be asking to keep me in. And that's not the first time. The Crown and the courts have denied me bail in the past. And I was a nursing mother at the time. So they don't really care about, locking me away. And so that's why we have to be creative in our resistance. And that's why we continue to go internationally to the banks, to the insurance companies. And really, we want to sue every international company that tries to come into our land. Really, it's all about money. It's all about having that money to be able to fight them in their courts. But Tiny House Warriors and the Manuel family has never had those type of money to be able to fight them in the courts, because give us a legal budget and we'll bring war in the courts against them, because we know the law. My father went to law school. We study that as our family breakfast, So we're happy that Indigenous people across the country stood up and stood up to shut the country down. And I think it was like, I feel that we have been given the people the battle honors they deserve, because then COVID-19 happened and pretty well everything shut down. But really, I want to do that. We need to pay tribute to everybody that took the courage to block the railways and block the highways in Canada, in so-called Canada. The Mohawk, and that was really inspiring. The Mohawk there in Tyendinaga, like, we had them here. They were helping us when we first set up Tiny House. Some of those same men, we're all connected across this country. The real warriors, we know everybody. We know each other because we do the same work, and trust goes a long way in the movement. We have to trust each other. And there's a lot of people that we don't trust right now. And some of them are our own people. And we saw it in the past, and we saw the scouts of the past and the people that were signing deals without the rest of the nation involved, like, still happening today. And the government plays that really well. They know how to cause this division, this divide and conquer within our nations.
Right.
Here in our territory is no excuse. We're also bombarded by these same sellouts that are selling out for the Trans Mountain Pipeline. But we have trauma here. You say one thing to one family and it could just spiral out of control. We have to deal with these issues of people committing treason in our nation, because it's very serious, because one man could sign with Trans Mountain and give them this facade like the rest of us gave consent. It's very dangerous. It's very dangerous because it's very volatile right now. Civil war can pop off within our people. That's how Canada is trying to play it amongst our people. Because Canada knows that one man doesn't have the power. He's not the proper title holder or the decision maker within our governance structure. The government knows that, but they'll continue to play that game. That one token Indian to do the dealings and make it look like we're for this. But the world is watching. When Native people shut that country down, the world was watching, and it created such a big uncertainty in this country that what we want is to say no business as usual, because business as usual means our human rights violations.
Right.
Business as usual means Indigenous rights violations. That's what it means. Like, we've been beat. What more do they want? We've been beat, killed, genocide inflicted. They've taken our language, taken our culture, taken our sweat lodges, taken our pit house villages, taken our children, taken our parenting skills, taken our everything. And here we are, this generation, first generation outside of the Indian residential school, second generation survivor of Indian residential school. And we're saying, no, ya basta, no more, no more, no more. And it leads us here. And we're, like they said, the blockade is that meeting point between Canadian assumed jurisdiction, authority, and law and Indigenous law. And that's where that meets, is that blockade. And so here at our blockade, we've had white supremacists at our doorstep. Just the other day, we had, truckloads congregating at our doorstep. And I have young women here. I have young men here with me. They're warriors. We have to hold them back. They want to tear right into them, just like you see in Minneapolis. But we have a movement that people are watching very carefully. This is the oil and gas resistance, and we know what happened to Dudley George, what happened on the front lines, and we have to remember his name. He was the land defender. He was the land defender that got killed by the Ontario Provincial Police, for being here at a camp just like this. Gustafson Lake, a camp, a spiritual Sundance camp, that was ambushed and, surrounded by 550 RCMP, 77,000 rounds. of ammunition fired at them. Um, During that court case, and this is from our territory, this is Secwepemc territory. My cousin was 15 in there. Wolverine was in there. You know, he was my grandfather as well, and my Kia Flo, she was in there. Like, these are people that that you know, can really talk about the genocide in Canada, because they had 77,000 rounds shot at them by the RCMP, and this was in 1995. And so this is not that far from where we're at right now, and not that far geographically from where I am right
Mm.
now, just over the mountains. And so the seriousness around land defense here in Canada really leads us to have a really multifaceted approach in fighting the land for our land, a diversity of tactics, because we can't just go one tactic. We have to have a diversity of tactics, and it's going to take Indigenous peoples with all of these desires and skill sets that want to work on the legal battle, that want to work on the political work, who wants to do the direct action. You know,
Mm.
we have to, and then there's the tech work, and then there's the science work, and even our management, even the management work, because my father would say, what happened if they give you all the land back? How are you going to manage it? No, they're going to have some band office workers say, oh, well, I got the perfect way to manage it. It's right here. You know, it's going
Mm-hmm.
to be based off the same colonial way of looking after land, you know, where it's all about making money. And so those are the types of skill sets that, you know, the solutions that we need is we need to start building up our young people, and just really, they already have their interest. It's just like, what are your skills and what are your interests, and working with the young people, because then we need to find places for them. We can't lose like our young people to this brain drain to
Mm-hmm.
colonial society. We can't afford our young people. We have brilliant young people,
Mm-hmm.
so brilliant, you know. We need to be able to utilize that, but we need to have some type of economy that's going to be able to pay them for this magnificent work that they're going to do in rebuilding our nations. And like, that's what I, when you said rebuilding our nations, or birthing our nations, like birth and birthing our nations, like I can talk a little bit about that, because that's what I see is as the young people and the children, is that we birth their nations as the mothers. Once we birth them, we have, since conception, like, they're in our womb, they're in the water, and you live with them inside your womb, you know, for all those months. And traditionally, we had certain things that we did as mothers. I heard about the Okanagan. They walked up a hill every day. I heard from Secwepemc women, oh, they put a buckskin around their belly, and then they would go into the cold water and skinny their belly up, and a rock would fall out, and they would ask for a easy birth. You know, there was all these different things that our traditions did to care for the mother, care for that baby inside. And then when our woman gave birth, they were surrounded by women in our community. They helped each other, and that baby was welcomed into the earth with with herbal bath and like medicine and prayer and song from the women. And I've participated in, like, honored to be a part of so many births out there, that I feel that that's some of the strongest political work that I do, is being there when babies are born, being there, my presence, being there. And really, I tell women that, like, because people will say, oh, this is who delivered you. This is the one, the midwife that helped deliver you and stuff. And I'm like, oh, no, I don't ever say that. I say that the women are the ones that do all the work. The mother is the one that does all the work. We're just there to empower the women in their own strength as a woman, is that we can birth our babies alone. Our people have done it since the beginning of time. We don't need to go to the hospitals to birth our babies. And when you hold those babies and birth those babies, and the aunties connect with the babies, they do certain things. They shape their cheekbones, even. They shape their jawbones. They do different things, and they talk to the babies. And And every role in our family was important to that baby. And that family system was intact. And when the baby first foods came, the only foods that we let that baby taste was, salmon, a little bit of salmon, a little bit of deer, a little bit of roots, and a little bit of berries. Those were the first things that they tasted. So they always knew where they come from. They know where they come from. And that's what connects us, that DNA to the connection to the land. And so all these ceremonies that the babies go through the rest of their lives is really important. And what we see now is because of colonization and the residential school and our family systems being broken because of that, that a lot of us never got to really experience all the beauty and the wealth of our culture and our lands. But by connecting to the land and decolonizing and taking control of our birth, we're going to start seeing that the power and the connection with the land and these ceremonies that we do connect us to the land so deeply. And so birth is a really powerful part of I guess my role in this world. And being on the front line takes me away from that. I've had to be here while mothers were in other nations birthing their babies. And I wish I could have had been in two places at once during these last couple of years while I've been fighting this pipeline. But upon more reflection, just during COVID-19, I feel that I'm ready to get back into the birth work. I like I said, I think it's some of the most strongest political work that I do, because it connects extended families with our families, and it just brings more unity amongst our nations. And birth is such a gentle way to unite our nation. Women are constantly giving birth, and Native people have a baby boom happening every year. as Native people, it's not just something that happens in one generation and that's the baby boom for that. No, we're having a baby boom every year with Indigenous people, and our population is growing, and we need to be able to create some type of stability or some type of land, a large enough geographical land so our people can sustain themselves out on the land and out on the territory. I mean, there's amazing women in our nations and across Canada, Native women that are doing amazing work with the food security and Indigenous food sovereignty. Like, the Indigenous food sovereignty movement is growing, and I believe that this is a part of the pipeline fight, is the Indigenous food sovereignty. That's why we're here fighting a pipeline, is for our Indigenous food sovereignty. Our berries, our huckleberries, our raspberries, all the mountain berries, our blueberries. Here is blueberry country. There's so much blueberries. You can't walk a foot without stepping on blueberries in the summertime. So everyone's picking so much blueberries, and the salmon is a very important lifeblood of our people, all the way from here in the interior where the salmon come to spawn and the birthing grounds of the salmon, all the way to the coastal people. The coastal people are really fighting against the tankers that they want, the big super tankers that they want up on the coast, and that's all linked with the oil and gas industry. They affect, there's a spill in the ocean, it's going to affect us here in the interior, because all those salmon swim up here. And I saw it firsthand at the Mount Polly mine disaster. I was one of the first people there on site. We lit a sacred fire. And for people that don't know what the Mount Polly mine disaster, it was like a massive mine that unleashed hundreds of millions of gallons, billion gallon of toxic mine waste into the headwaters of the Fraser River, into um, Polly Lake, and then to Hazeltine Creek, and then into Quesnel Lake. And it was such a massive devastation. It pretty well brought me to my knees, and I fell into the tailings when I went there. I brought EPTN Rob Smith there to document, because they had all the security gates locked off, and we had to break in to get into the site because they didn't want nobody to see the truth about how devastating that was, how much tailings and toxic mine waste just covered the whole earth. It tore down trees, it tore down whole forests. There was old growth cedars that you couldn't even put your arms around that just toppled. And it was a interior temperate rainforest, so it destroyed a lot of cedars, and it went into the Cornell Lake, which is the second deepest glacier-fed lake, fjord lake in the world. And the salmon run was just coming up at the time, and so we are we're still dealing with the impacts of the Mount Poly mine disaster. It's it's um it's something that has changed my life forever, just witnessing that. And these Canadian mining companies, every year after the Mount Poly mine disaster, we would sabotage their annual general assembly, or their AGMs for Imperial Metals is the company, a Canadian owned company, Vancouver headquarters, and they also have a mine just up here, and an exploratory drilling up at near Tum Tum Lake that we're also opposed to even prior to the disaster. So we know firsthand they will not clean up their mess. I saw it firsthand. They didn't clean up their mess. That was, hundreds of millions of sludge, mine sludge. Nothing was cleaned up. They stuck saw chips over top of the sludge and inserted red willow branches, and that's pretty well all they did to say that there was some type of remediation. And of course, they hired Native people to do that remediation. So, that's what we know will happen. Trans Mountain pipeline spill in our rivers. Nothing will be done to clean it up, and there's no enforcement. There's no monitoring here in Canada, and there's no enforcement at all. I mean, Mount Poly mine disaster went without any type of inspection for years, and that earthen dam was bulging and it was shifting, and it was, the whistleblowers from that company talked all about that shoddy work. And that's what they said: when you have contractors that are doing work, they're outbidding the other contractors, and so that means cutting corners. So contractors are all about cutting corners. I mean, a couple of the contractors for Trans Mountain Line on the Coquihalla Highway is Vinci and Spycap, and they're from Europe. They're both European companies, and we have our European supporters, writing them letters, and they want to start amping up their direct action. They've offered to do direct action against these contractors and people that are thinking that they can come over from Europe and they have consent and to access our lands, and they don't. And so really educating and going and these European tours that Indigenous people do, I really believe that it's helping us, because they have to listen. They have to meet with us. Those big banks, PNB Paribas, AXA Insurance, AXA Insurance divested $1 billion US, and we hope that that's because Indigenous people continue to go visit AXA Insurance and continue to tell them of the risk and uncertainty they face if they invest or underwrite any type of companies that are operating in our lands. And so insurance companies and banks, my father was really adamant about continuing that work. And, Naomi Klein helped to get a meeting with Standard & Poor's in New York to talk about Canada's credit rating. Whoever does that, Native people talking directly to S&P about Canada's credit rating, but not giving them a thumbs up, actually trying to take their credit rating down because they don't have clear title to their land, not until they recognize and implement that we have title to our land. Not just recognize it, we don't need them, but we need it implemented into all of their land policies and laws that are in place. We need to have our land back, but in a 100% certain way that they're not going to come and take it again, so, but it's going to take the young people.
Mm.
definitely need the power of the young people and the muscle that they got.
Hmm. What does allyship look like to you? What do you want to see from supporters right now?
I say that um, money,
Hmm.
and in this capitalist system right now that we're dealing with, we want to transition out into an indigenous economy, but right now we need resources.
Hmm.
And we have a list of other resources and supplies that people don't want to give direct cash, and they would rather in-kind donation a supply item, two-way radios, spotlights, more solar. Like we are going to be building some more tiny houses, so we need some volunteer solar people, volunteer builders. It's COVID-19. We still practicing a lot of our social distance and are wearing our masks, and we're having more people coming up to our camp, but we're finding creative ways where we can do our land back but still respect the social distance, and this maybe this new normal that we're going to be living in within these couple of years or however. But we want to fight back, and everybody has been in lockdown and they're very eager to fight back. A lot of young people are just waiting for the word, so I feel that we don't have a concern about that. Some other people ask, so how about the fundraising? How do you feel about fundraising? Are people still donating and stuff? And yeah, for us, I feel that people are still assisting because we're all the way up here, and especially we've had these hate attacks on our camp. Um, we had the 3 white males that came to our front gate with the commanders that smashed um, through our barricade and then stole my truck and smashed it into our house, one of the tiny houses here, and then reversed it and then smashed it into the pole and then fled. And you could hear this woman screaming that was with them, like, the cops are coming. But like, yeah, the cops didn't come until like after, when I had to end up having to report it. And that was even it's hard for us to even have to deal with the cops, but then talking to all the human rights experts, we just had a human rights symposium, and they all assured that no, we got to continue to exhaust all of our domestic, remedies right now, like, filing with the hate crime, filing, they're doing this police reports or something's on file, even though I record everything. I mean, they're doing surveillance on us, but I record every detail, any type of, and that was my only communication with the police, was that police report, and it was freaking terrifying because they treated me like I was a suspect. And my lawyer was on the call too, and he said he cut it off, and he's like, I deal with this every day, and I never hear the police talk to a victim of a crime this way. This is the very first time ever, and that was Clearwater RCMP. And so, yeah, even when we have to deal with them in that sense, we're still being discriminated against. And I think as land defenders, it's more than racism for us. I feel like the way that they look at blacks, or the way that they look at Chinese, or they look at other races, they look at us different because we're actually title holders to the land. This is actually our land. Like, they're actually feeling threatened about their security on our land. And what happens, if everyone has to follow by Indigenous law, it would actually be better. People are going to have a better standard of living. People are going to be happier. People are going to, like,
Tell me
there's
more about
no
that.
fear.
What does happen if everybody has to abide by Indigenous laws, nation to nation, place based Indigenous laws? What does that
What
look
I
like?
say, what I say is that first, Indigenous laws about respecting the earth, like the earth and the water, the land, everything of life that's provided by the earth is why we even exist. Because if we don't have the glaciers, the water, the fresh, clean water, and the food that's provided off of the land, the oxygen that we get from the trees and the land, then we're dead. So, our first law is our relationship with the land and the relationship with our people that live on this land. We want to respect human rights. Everybody's human right. Everybody has a human right to breathe and live. Okay, we don't want to just, a lot of people come here because they face oppression. They face a lot of different things of why they come here. Not everybody comes here just because they have privilege and money to come here. A lot of people coming here because they're fleeing from hardships in their own countries. So we believe in human rights, but we believe that there's a way for Indigenous people to continue to exist on our land with that respect, that our economies were based on that relationship with our land. Our economies were our economic value is, you can't even quantify it. It surpasses the trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars, because we're talking about all of these years since the mammoths, since the beginning of time. We're talking about human sweat equity into the land, spiritual prayers and fasting and enlightenment that came from all these teachings to put in place how we govern ourselves, our laws of consensus and decision making, our the way that our conduct, all of these were told within, here in Secwepemc are told within the coyote stories, the Seclep chief coyote and the Seclep stories that teach us all of this, the laws, the conduct. It even teaches us how the women and men conduct each other, you know, how we treat our children, how we don't try to act like somebody else. Like all these teachings, we don't laugh at people, we don't mock people. These are all teachings that Coyote teaches us a lot. And a lot of times we go, oh, no, 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 we don't want to be like Coyote. Coyote's a womanizer. Coyote's, you know, he does this and he does that. He teaches us how not to act too. And so people shunned when you act a certain way. You wanted to destroy something over here. People shunned you for that because you were breaking our laws. You were disrespecting our teachings from Tkalkukbi. And so our laws were a lot different. Our laws were all based on that respect. And that's what we need, and the respect of the earth. Because once we can respect the earth, which a lot of Indigenous people refer to as our mother earth, as a female spirit, it makes you tread gentle and lightly on her, because she's constantly reproducing, just like birthing our nation. This earth is birthing our nation as well with us, because it's the only reason why we exist as Indigenous people, is because we're blessed with this beautiful, bountiful earth. And like my elder said, like, people think you have heaven somewhere else. No, heaven is right here. It's what we make it. And we have to put the effort in. The earth has been abiding by its ancient responsibility. The salmon has been following their ancient responsibility, comes back every 4 years, lives in the lakes, goes back out to the ocean, feeds every Indigenous person along the way. That was their responsibility. It was a pact, and within the salmon nation and our people. And we're able to continue that relationship. That's an economy. The salmon is an economy. We never thought of it as money, and we never thought of it as over harvesting. It was a relationship, and that's why you can never put a price tag on our economy. You can never put a price tag on our economy, because you can never quantify it in a some way of thinking, like a monetary capitalist value. Our value is so deeply entrenched into all of creation, the value. And that's what economists, PhD economists, will always tell me. They always say, you know, value is a really important thing. You know, like PhD economists say, oh, we learn from each other, because I need to try to figure out how these people think. And, you know, these people that deal with money, they want to fight through with math. Some man told me, he wrote books on mining and things. he said, I said, I want to fight Mount Polymine. I want to fight Imperial Metals. How do I fight them? I had like 5 minutes to talk to him. He said, they read math. They don't read English. They don't read images of pictures, a woman crying. Why is she crying? Put math to it. Oh, that woman crying is actually bringing sales down on our math here, our financial statements. That's what those corporations and government, they're not looking at anything. They're not looking at people's letters to the government that says, hey, I'm concerned about you violating Indigenous rights. They look at the numbers. They're looking, that's what we are. We're money. You know, if we're going to cost them money, oh, reconciliation, get the natives not rebelling. We got to look like it's business as usual in BC. You know, so I want to start shifting ways of that we are starting to think of, well, the way that we think about economy, shifting it back into this way of this beautiful reciprocal relationship we've always had with our lands, like just this beautiful relationship that we have with our babies. You know, all these things that people don't know, like Kanahus is so mad, she's so angry, she's always yelling, she's, you know, like, I wish she would just talk like this and then not say things like this. Like, no, I'll be truth. Like, you know, my uncle's Russell Truth Bomb. Like, he's a truth bomb. Like, that's what he inspires me. Like, I want to be the truth. I want to live it so I can show people we can do it. And that's what I did with my children. I birthed them out of the hospital. I caught my babies. I never registered them with the government of Canada. You know, I had to learn, I had to study, I had to find elders to teach me, because there's only pockets of elders that know this little bit and this little bit. You can't find it in one spot anymore. You have to go, you got to reach it, you got to desire it, and you got to absorb it, and you got to pass it to our children. And the ones that don't know about those medicines, the ones that don't know about that, we got to pass it so we can build our mighty nation again, so we could grow this beautiful nations like we want. Because just a little bit of knowledge about this plant medicine can grow a young girl into a powerful medicine woman for our nation, to heal our nation, to heal people from COVID-19, to, you know, like, those are the types of things that the beauty of our culture and our traditions that they wanted to cut. They wanted to cut and they wanted to throw it away and think that they're done with it. But no, they didn't kill us, and they didn't kill that knowledge. It's there. And the young people are craving it and they're starving for it, that all we have to be there is be there for them. And yeah, we're going to have this beautiful nation, and building this nation is all of our responsibility. It's not just one. We all hold that little bit that's going to make, we all had our own roles in our nations. We had our own roles. And when I went to Unistoten camp for the first time, and I went there with my husband, the father of my 4 children, and I was met there by Frida and Smogagam and some other people at the bridge, and we went through the free, prior, informed consent protocol. And what does that look like in acting it as a living law? And they said, what's your name? Who are you from? Where's your lineage from? What type of skills do you have to offer if we allow you into our nation? How are you going to leave our nation a better place? And I had to really think about that as an Indigenous woman, standing there with my children, witnessing my words that are coming as this formal, you know, political, I don't know, like, relationship that we're forming with this other nation, like spiritual, you know, not just political, but spiritual, like something. And I had to think of all these things. Okay, I'm going to I could deliver babies. I know about medicines. I can smoke moose meat and deer meat. I know how to set up a smoke or smoke salmon. And they said, okay, after when I said, we want to leave it a better place, I could offer teachings with children and women, and they said, okay, when they finally let us in, like, okay, we allow you to come into our village. And they said, we have a moose that we just got, a big moose, and we just built a smoker. So that's where we want your help, is to teach the people how to smoke this moose. And it was like, I told them the list of my skills that I had, and it wasn't me to choose where they needed my assistance. It was them. They chose what skills they needed from me in their territory and where they needed my help. And I, happily agreed to do all of that. And that's what they taught, like free, prior, informed consent as a living law. And they do the same thing to Coastal GasLink, to Shell when they come in, and they don't pass their free, prior, informed consent protocols. They deny them because they're not there to benefit their nation. Their skills aren't there to leave their nation a better place. And so I learned a lot from that protocol within the Wet'suwet'en Nation, and we bring it back here to our nation, and really looking at every single Canadian and what skills they have to offer to make the Indigenous nation of where they're living a better place, and to start putting some of that skills aside. So I've reached out to PhD economists and teachers and people who do um, curriculum and things like, and I befriend a lot of people that have a lot of skills, and we become good friends, and we share those skills with each other. And that's what I see. What we need from Canada is, we need Canada to really look at what type of skills they can give, and really put effort into Indigenous sovereignty, Indigenous food sovereignty, and the land defense for our Indigenous people. It's all about land. We need database, we need app developers, we need, a lot of different skill sets out there. We need farmers that are willing to farm for the people. We need builders that are willing to come and volunteer for the summer to get a cabin out, get a pit house up, get some type of structure up for someone who really wants to live full time and occupy and go back to our territories and take back land. And so, yeah, we have so much, there's so much skill sets out there, and we need everybody to reach out. That's how we're going to build our nation.
Do you have anything else you want to share, Kanahus? I'm not going to even touch it. You can just keep flowing.
Yeah, I have a lot to say.
Mm-hmm.
Really, I want to talk about some of the things that Indigenous land defenders face on the front lines,
Mm-hmm.
and that my family has been really active in healing. And it seems funny, like, yeah, we're on the front lines, and we maybe seem so aggressive and at times, but we're mothers. And my auntie Vera Manuel, my auntie Emmeline Manuel, my auntie Doreen Manuel, like, they're all amazing women. My auntie Vera has passed on. She is a playwright, and she wrote plays, but she was also a healer of childhood sexual trauma. And she taught us, as young women, how residential school, and how we are all affected by this trauma. And a lot of us, land defenders, and are survivors of childhood sexual trauma, a lot of our people. And I don't want to hide it, and I don't want to sugarcoat it, because residential school created that. Residential school was a place where a lot of pedophiles flocked. And yeah, they did happen to be priests and nuns, and their stories. I'm not trying to hide anything. This is out there. The Truth and Reconciliation. You can see Indigenous people giving their testimonies of sexual trauma that happened at the hands of the Canadian government at these residential schools. The intergenerational effects that has caused on us. I mean, I'm a first generation out of residential school there, but so much people are still being plagued by um, being captured into the child welfare system. And so a lot of our, even right now, there's more more children in the system being taken and stolen from their communities now than at the height of residential school. So this is still happening. The foster care system is also a place where a large number of our young women and young men are still being sexually assaulted at these foster homes. And this is not nothing new. I mean, I hear testimonials all the time. This is not nothing new. This is still happening to this day. And the type of healing that we're going to see is actually getting back out onto the land. We need to continue to support all of our young people that are struggling with the addictions. When we see them on the streets, when we see them, acknowledge them, acknowledge them, let them know they have a home back out on their land. My family is not excused from that. I mean, we've had addictions in our families, but we're in my family as well that we work so tirelessly to keep our family as a sober family and to be able to raise our children in that way, so we don't have another generation lost to alcoholism. We don't have another generation lost to child abuse. We don't want that. And this is what empowers our people when they stand out on the front lines. When we occupied Skukwakwold and took stopping the Sun Peak Ski Resort, which we learned a lot from that resistance. But a lot of the people there said this was their treatment center. This is where they stayed sober, was on the front lines. And I know that. And the land is where everything is going to come from. It's going to be, our healing is going to come from the land. Dipping in that cold water, being surrounded by the mountains, breathing the fresh mountain air and this medicine air. Oh, these are all medicine trees that are making this air that we're breathing out here. And, you know, I do want to honor all of my family. My sisters, Nutetko Manuel, and my twin sister, Mayik Manuel, and my brother, Skahish Manuel, my sister, Rita, all of my family that are tirelessly, fighting for our existence as well. And my family is all birth workers too. My mother's a birth worker. My two sisters are birth workers. We know the importance of catching the babies and bringing them into this beautiful world. We, as Native people, we've been suffering at the hands of colonization that has layered trauma upon trauma upon trauma on our people, grief upon grief upon grief, because we're losing our fathers and our mothers at such a short life expectancy, of colonization. So we're losing our fathers at a young age. We're losing, our children to addictions. We're losing our children to the streets. This is what's happening as an everyday reality for Indigenous people. But we are strong, and we need to be there for each other as strong people. When you feel like you want to shit talk or talk bad about other people, stop yourself. Stop yourself in the tracks and see what our people are really trying to say. Our people are hurting. And we have to understand that yeah, we want our warriors. We want our warriors. We want our warriors to stand on the front lines. We want to do that. But we have to realize that our warriors are warriors because they had to fight back. They had to fight back against oppression, against genocide, against the cops trying to kill them. They had to fight back. So it leaves our warriors with a lot of trauma as well. So when we say we want our warriors, we need to embrace, and everything what that means. And that means by standing by all of our people while we're healing from this colonization. This is the like someone said, killing the black man is the pandemic. Yeah, I believe that it's a global pandemic. Just like stealing the native land is a global pandemic, and it's a sickness. They think that they have the right to do it, and it is a sickness. Because imagine you out there just going and taking something and killing a whole race of people. No, that would make you sick. That would make you sick. And that's what it has done to Canada. It has made Canada a very sick nation to think that they can do that and still get away with it today. So we're healing, but we're while we're healing ourselves, we're also, you know, healing the land, because we're it's the same. We're the same. We are the ecological biodiversity. We are.
Hi. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. I know that you got to get back. You're there on the front lines. You've been sitting for a while. But thank you. Is there anything else that you want to add just to kind of close off?
Yeah, I think that we need to light those fires wherever they may be. I mean, we saw that police station being lit on fire. Those are sacred fires too, because they're eliminating, and it's a cleansing of the earth, a cleansing to cleanse ourselves of that, that patriotic like way that the government and the world looks at these colonial countries. These colonial countries, um, we burnt their forts to the ground because they came to destroy. You know, we we need to light those sacred fires, and we need to let it continue to burn and burn and burn, and don't ever stop burning in our hearts.
Light
Yeah,
those fires.
I just have I'm just showing a little bit of this, but I
Yep.
don't know if you could see, but there's some more people congregating at our entrance. So I don't know, I could sign off right now, but I just have some people there, and I think it's going to be the same sort of standoff that happened the other day. And I know you need to sign off, but I'll just bring this to the front gate so you can see exactly what we deal with. And this is what they did 3 or 4 days ago. Or was it 4 days ago when they came?
Kanahus, I don't need to sign off. You have almost 100 people watching right now, so we're with you.
Oh, okay. Do you see that little chipmunk on the blockade?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, this is the front of our blockade right now, and this is where they were all standing yesterday too. And so this is on Blue River Road. This is Myrtle Lake Road, and came, and they came with, or maybe 7 cars, maybe 15 to 20 people came throughout the day, and they parked there, and they harassed us and taunted us with language, and brought their cars through and revved up their engines and everything, and now they're just parked there again, and they'll probably call the cops again. Last time I went on the megaphone and I read some of my dad's book, Reconciliation Manifesto, and just gave them a history lesson about Canada and things. So they're the ones that are spewing all the racism and the white supremacy online. It's called the Blue River Classifieds page, and they'll go on there. They'll talk hate about us, talking about killing our camp dog or driving through our barricades and but lighting our houses on fire. They talk about a lot of stuff like that, and it reminds me of the Trump rallies that happen. This is sort of like a white supremacist rally that they have here, because they don't under. I keep on. That's why we need education in Canada, that we have a right to be here occupying our lands, to stop destruction on our territory that doesn't have consent. And so this is where I am, and I could probably go closer, but who knows how they're going to react. You guys want me to go closer? See, you guys want to see how they look?
Yeah. You can tell them they're on the news.
Yeah, we'll tell them. Yeah, so this is Blue River, and these are our mountains, and we have some people here congregating again. And this is what happened a couple of days ago too. And so it looks like there's all females this time.
It's a lot of the same people.
It's a lot of the same people. Actually, try to get pictures of their faces this time. So
KY 4791, LG 1164.
yeah, hello. This is COVID-19 global pandemic, and what's your intention of being at my doorstep? What is your intention?
And don't videotape us.
Actually, you're on the news right now. This is the National Observer right here.
Looks like you're on the news too. Why are you doing the COVID? Get away from us. You're talking about COVID and you're not moving away from us.
Stay away.
That doesn't make
Stay
any
away from me.
sense. If you guys are interested in
Stay away from me.
COVID,
Come near me. Come on. Come near me.
So you're just being threatened right now. Hmm. I think we've lost your audio. Can everyone hear the audio, or is it just me who can't hear it right now? Kanahus, I think we've lost your audio. Oh, could you hear? Let's see what she's planning on doing here. Thanks everyone for your patience. Very powerful conversation with Kanahus. Very grateful. It came on for a second. May need to update her flash. I'll let you all know if Kanahus has gone live on her own Facebook. Yeah, she's live now. So I'm going to sign off. I encourage everyone to check in on Kanahus's Facebook. So check out her Facebook page. She's gone live. Thank you so much for joining us in this conversation. It's been recorded. We'll continue to share. Hi. Have a great day. Talk to you all very soon. Thanks so much.